Welcome to my podcast, Aline Global Technology. And today we're going to talk about visas being denied. Every decision we make it, every person that we're planning to put out there in office, it could be in Brazil or US, is going to reflect in our society. And in technology industry, we are facing right now with so many visas has been rejected. And that's why we're having the podcast today. And we're going to discuss with Diana. And before we go over to this, I'd like she can give you a little brief about herself. What does she do? And introduce a little bit your job, what you have done so far.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm honored to be with you, Aline. So I'm Diane Canada, and I have a long history of working with CEOs and entrepreneurs, business owners prior to my work in politics. And my superpower, so to speak, is connection and messaging, teaching people how to have very difficult conversations, how to win hearts and minds, that kind of thing. I lost my brother to PTSD in 2015, and I had no aspirations to be in politics prior to that. But after his death, God just started tugging on my heart heavily for public service. And so that led to some smaller political positions and then eventually running for State House of Representatives here in Tennessee in 2020. And that race was during COVID, the BLM riots, all of that here in the United States, a very tumultuous time for our country. Since running for office, I've been building a women's training program that builds on those concepts of trying to reach across aisles and try to bring healing to our country, trying to help people understand the political landscape and the very complex issues at more of a manageable level, bite-sized pieces. So that program is called Lady Up America, and been building that now for about 5 years, and really love it. So very immersed in politics, although I'm not a politician.
Thank you. And before we go start our questions, right? I'm sure you are watching us. You have your own questions too. It's a very interesting topic to discuss right now, especially right now, what's going on now over here in America, but globally speaking, right? There's a lot of change happening and is affecting us in some way, how in our job, in our way, whatever you go in our society. And it making me think to asking questions instead decide to be negative thoughts, control my brain, but asking what's going on and what is behind this, right? And we have options to have a dialogue that we're having right now, and or you can go to another direction and just accusing or create excuses to avoid the truth and not try to understand things that's happening, once again, not over in America, but globally, right? And before we start out my question here, I'd like to, Diana, you can explain a little bit about the Constitution, American Constitution, right? Why is that? Everything, there is a history behind, right? If you go as a Christian country and as a Christians too, if you go to Bible, in Romans chapter 13, from 1 to 7, it talk about respect your authorities. And back that days, the Nero, the king, he was kind of like jealous a little bit of Paul being persecuting, and people were giving money to Paul of his ministry. It kind of like making him a little bit worried where this money coming from and not coming from the government, right? So that was the problem they had back that days. And then Paul wrote this saying, give the money and respect your authorities, respect the law, right? And here in America, we have to go back to the history. That's why I'm asking about the Constitution, right? Everything starts from there. And then that's why we can have some backlog, I would say, to understand what's happening right now in our society, right? So talk about Constitution. if you want to learn about more American history, you can have access to any books, right? If you're here in America, you can have this for free through the library if you don't want to spend your money, right? Or you can have a digital today, but there is a way that you can learn about American history. According with my homework that I did here a little bit about, in 1924, during the Calvin Coolidge president, he was the one that signed and made the Native America to have a U.S. citizenship and has a paper being legal in the country. And then after that, that's when the visas and if you want to come in and go, we know what you're doing here in the country, right? So that's the beginning of the history here. And now I'm going to hand it to you.
Okay.
And just to give us a little bit explanation between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Yes. Well, you're so right. We have to go back to the beginning so that we can understand how we got here. And so, yes, when in the Bible, in Romans, yes, he does say to respect the government authorities. And there's also context in the Bible that we are to obey God first and foremost. We are to obey the government authorities so long as we are not disobeying God's law. So God's rule is supreme. And as long as those leaders are honoring the godly principles, then yes, absolutely we are to respect them and to give them our full obedience. But when we have rulers that overstep the rights that were given to us by our Creator, then we have an obligation to take a stand. Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of people are kind of mixing that up, I think. And that's really how America started. So we had a king. King George was extremely tyrannical, and he was a Christian. Like there was actually a law of the land in the UK that said you absolutely had to abide by these. That's where we get the King James Bible from, right? He was basically saying you have to abide by these laws, these rules, which we all of course adhere to the Bible. But what he was doing is he was using it in very twisted and tyrannical ways, and so he was persecuting people if they didn't go by his version of it. And this is one of the reasons why our founding fathers, when they came to America, they did not want to have a law of the land when it came to religion. They didn't want to establish a religion for America, because religion is very different than relationship with Jesus. Religion can be used as a weapon. Mm-hmm. So when the settlers came to America and they started to, and they blessed, they came here with their Christian heritage, and they wanted America to be set up as a Christian nation. And even George Washington went to a Catholic church and blessed, dedicated America to God. So absolutely, we were founded on those values, but we didn't want to establish that religion because we wanted people to have free will here, just like God gave us free will. Mm-hmm. You don't want to force people to follow. You want them to want to follow, right? And we knew that as a free people, that the only way that our republic could be sustainable is if people could be trusted to be self-governed. Mm-hmm. And so what happened in 1776, which we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of America, is when we came here, the British government started imposing very oppressive taxes on us and laws on us. That king kind of still had a hold over us, even though we were here. We were set up as the colonies initially. They started wielding that authority here, and it became very, very tyrannical. So our founding father, George Washington, and our founding fathers basically said, enough. We've had enough. We're not going to let this happen here. And they declared their independence from Great Britain. Mm-hmm. So that's what the Declaration of Independence is about. It's them declaring in a document, in an official document, that no, our rights are given to us by God. You have no authority to give us our rights. They come from God. And basically they laid down that document and they declared it publicly, officially, that we want to separate from Great Britain. So that then started, of course, the Revolutionary War. And we know that lasted for about 5 years. After that war, and we were a ragtag operation here. I mean, they outspent us, they weaponized us, but yet they will tell you that because of God, the providence of God, there were so many things that happened in that war that could only be because God gave them that providence. God gave us that favor. For example, things like in the winter, around Christmas time, George Washington was leading these troops, and they had no shoes. I mean, a lot of them, their shoes had worn out. A lot of times they could be tracked by their bloody footprints through ice and snow, you can imagine. And there was a blizzard that was coming, and they started to retreat and not actually go forward to advance against the British Army. And I think at that time it was actually a rebel army that was, working on behalf of the British government. But George Washington heard from the Lord, and he said, the Lord told him to advance. And what the Lord did is he actually forced the blizzard so that the wind and all that went into the enemy faces, and it blinded them. And so it gave them an advantage, and they ended up winning that battle. So there were lots and lots of things like that. So George Washington could have been killed many, many, many times, and he wasn't, because he was operating on God's authority and not anyone else's. So that declaration was the first step. And then the Constitution came after the Revolutionary War was over, and the Founding Fathers started gathering and trying to decide, how are we going to protect this republic that we just fought so hard for? Is it going to be a republic? Right. Is it going to be a democracy? And it's really important for people to understand that a republic and a democracy are very, very different. A democracy is like two wolves and a sheep trying to decide what's for dinner. So you can't have mob rule, right? It has to be fair. And so a republic is basically saying, okay, like California is much, much bigger than Rhode Island, right? But so we don't want to have democracy, right? Because California would rule. Right. But you want to have representatives from each state so that everyone has equal representation. And this is why we have delegates. This is why our republic is set up the way that it is. So when they were contemplating this in the Constitution Convention, when they were all coming together and they were trying to decide, how are we going to set this government up? When they left the room, and again, a lot of prayer, they were fighting all through it, like they couldn't agree. And they finally got to this point where they brought God into it and they prayed over it. And almost all of our founding fathers were Christians. A lot of people will debate that, but I've studied this at length, and almost all of them were Christian. And once they brought God into it, they started to get that wisdom, right? And so when they came out of the room, after all those days of camping in there and trying to figure out how to set our republic up, someone asked Benjamin Franklin, they said, well, what do we have? Do we have a democracy or do we have a republic? And do you remember what he said? He said, we have a republic as long as we can keep it. Because he knew that it was very fragile. And the only way that we could protect it would be for people to be self-governed. And what I mean by that is they have to understand that they're answering to God too. It's not just free for all. It's not just anybody can do anything they want. That's not freedom. If you have a fire and you have that fire contained with little rocks around it, that fire can warm you, it can feed you, it can sustain your life. But if you just go light a match and you put it in a forest, right, it's going to burn the whole forest down. So we knew we had to have guardrails and boundaries. And those were the Christian values that they brought. We knew we need, and they're based a lot on the Ten Commandments. So we knew we had to have boundaries. But people have to understand that God is watching when no one else is. And if they know that, then they will obey their Creator, and then all these laws will not be necessary. The idea is to keep government very, very small. The bigger the government gets, the less free we are. Right. So this Constitution, which I want to give you a copy of, this is from the 917 Society. September 17th is Constitution Day in America. And this is a very special pocket constitution commemorating the 250th anniversary of America. So I want to give you that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's a wonderful organization. They're putting these pocket constitutions into the hands of middle schoolers all across America. And for anyone else who might be watching that would like those in their schools, we would be the founders of that would be happy to send them for free. Okay. Yeah.
And this is, people globally, they can also have the same access.
Yes, absolutely. And the Constitution is different. So I didn't fully answer your question. The Constitution is different because this now lays the framework, all of the governing framework for our country. So the Declaration was that big announcement saying, we don't want to be part of Great Britain anymore. We want to be our own country. Then the Constitution had to come after that then to lay out what that was going to look like. So all of the laws so things like freedom of speech, You should be able to say what you want to say within boundaries. It doesn't mean anything, right? You can't say, I'm going to go kill someone. There are boundaries that we have. But freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to bear arms, and even like things like the Second Amendment in here that gets a lot of grief these days when we have these tragic mass shootings and things like that. The right to bear arms was not intended for people to kill each other. Mm-hmm. It was intended to protect the Americans from their government getting too big. And their government impending on their rights that are laid out in that Constitution. And if you disarm a people, then the government can take control. And that's what we don't want to have happen in America. Yeah. But there's lots and lots of clarification of how our republic is set up in that Constitution. And everyone should read that and know what their rights are.
Mm-hmm. That's why we have this dialogue, right? Yeah. There's so many things behind the scenes that we don't have no idea. And for us, like me, as an immigrant, we don't have no clue. If you don't go deep and do your own homework to find out more details, we're never gonna learn how the things happening, right? So that's what is very important, to access this and then go to library, find some books or go some digital. Right now it's very easy. We are live in a technology industry right now that you can have access wherever you are, right? So no excuses to learn about the American Constitution anymore, right? Well, it's so interesting to me because hearing you, all these details, it make me think about it. Well, why we're dealing with all this change right now, right? Why people feel so negative to not follow the law. Because from my understanding, those guys back that time, right, I'm assuming mostly lawmakers,
Yeah,
lawyers.
A lot of them were lawyers, yes.
Lawyers, right? I can imagine how many hours they were spending discussing and writing, right? Yeah. So, or maybe days or nights, I don't know.
Oh, it went on for weeks. I mean, that was a very, very difficult document to come up with, to write. And again, it really took that spiritual wisdom, because there's so many things that you have to consider when you write a law.
Right.
Or when you, in this case, a constitution. And this needed to be able to sustain throughout the ages, right? So that's why they allow amendments and things like that, because they knew that as society grew and changed and technology, they didn't know technology was going to be like it is today.
Right.
But they knew that our society would evolve, and so things had to change. But the fundamental rights and freedoms will never change. If you look back to Nero's days, you look back to Jesus's days, human nature never changes.
Right.
So if, and there's a great saying out there that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. So anytime the government gets too much power, then the people are no longer free and you have tyranny. And so they knew that they had to protect us from that. They had studied other world governments and they had seen what brought them down, what brought down the Roman government, what brought down the Greek government. They had studied this. They were historians. They studied Aristotle and all of these great scholars of the day to make sure that as they were setting America up, they were doing it in a way that would be sustainable. And I think a lot of the reason why, you just ask, like, why are we in the position we're in now? It's because people don't know their history.
Right.
And they don't, and that was very methodical. We started looking in the 60s and 70s. You can start pinpointing it back to that time period when it started to unravel. If you look at a test of, like, let's just say an 11-year-old from the 1920s from their school, that test looks very, very different than an 11-year-old right now. The level of knowledge and information that they had in the early days of our republic is off the charts different than what kids learn now. There's been a dumbing down in our school system very purposefully.
Yeah.
If you don't know what your rights are, and your emotions then can be manipulated, then this is where we get the division. If you're and this is what is happening so much is people who are well-meaning, they just don't know any different. And so people are preying on that. They're preying on their emotions. They get them all riled up. They get them angry. They get them confused, all of that. Then if you can divide a society, if you can use that emotional weapon to divide a society, our pledge says, the United States of America, if they can divide us, then they can conquer us.
Right.
And it's so obvious when we sit and look at it like that. But this is exactly what's happening in our country. There is a very methodical agenda to divide Americans using emotion and making sure that they don't know their rights.
Makes sense. Now, for me, when you talk about, you're saying they spend maybe weeks or maybe a month to finish all this, right? When I refuses not follow the rules and the law and understanding a little bit more about the history, the country, in this case, America, it's just, to me, don't show any respect because you chose to be here, right? And to me, it will be write it up like this.
Yeah.
Like this. Everything they have done, right? And make me think how their relatives today, maybe grandkids, right? What they think about it, right? What they have done for this country so far, is how many fights, and they pay a very expensive price to do this. And then I come from Brazil or whatever, or any country, right, choosing to be here. And then I said, no, I'm gonna do on my way. It has to be on my way. I don't need to learn the language. I don't need to learn the history. Why? Because I don't want to. Or I give so many excuses for not following the law. But if you go back to your own history in your own country, you also have your own constitution, right? And then somebody comes and say, oh, let's change everything now, right? And then I don't need to learn Portuguese. I don't need to learn any about the history about Brazil, but I want to make something change on my favor, right? How's that look like for you? I don't think it's going to be okay to accept that, right? And I think to me is just be honest with yourself. If you don't want anything from you that can cause you and can affect you, you should not have to do with other countries and other people. At least just try to follow the rules, the law, and respect them. That's, I think, the minimal thing that has a good citizenship we could be done in respect, right? That's my understanding when I go through these books, and then I choose to do the right thing and respect the law, any kind of law in America. If you're driving around, you should have your drive license, right? Respect the cops, the police, and follow the rules, and then you'll be okay. That's the minimal thing we can do. We have so many troubles, so many problems in our own country as well when the people don't follow the rules, right? And then we get upset, we feel like violated, and when you choose not doing this, not respecting, that's the same feeling. It don't make no difference, right? And think about the visa situation that we always want to hear about. What's going on? How long this is going to happen? Then I'm going to put my application is going to be denied. In America, it's going to be now because of Trump. And we always using somebody or accusing somebody for your own mistakes that we have done, right? But here's the thing, what is behind? Why they make all this decision when they go to the consul to have your interview back in Brazil or India or whatever country it is? You're saying one thing, one statement, one true, you're true. And then you come to land here in America, you just, for some reason, you just decide not follow what you said when you left your country, right? So let's talk about this a little bit. I want to hand it to you and just have more clarity to for these people that think that way. Why has been so many visas denied and rejected by U.S. government to their own countries, and how long this is going to continue? Is this going to be like a specific one target group? Is going to be open door for them? Because one thing it is what the media publish is not the true.
Right.
That's why we are here, have this dialogue, right? we need to understand that by not only the history, but give the people a chance, like Diana that has the experience, she born and raised here, she has authority to explain to me what it is behind, right?
Thank you for that opportunity, because we do have a lot of very strong feelings about this. Like you would say, like in any country, it's like if you're in your home, right? You've worked hard for your home, you bought your home, you've decorated your home, you've raised your family in your home. It's your sanctuary, right? That's where your heart is, your memories are, your upbringing, everything. It's such a special, sacred place to you. Well, if someone were to come to the door that you've never met, that you don't know anything about, and they were to force their way in, and they were to take all of your stuff and throw it out into the yard and replace it with their things and bring in their family and kick your family out, or just say, well, we'll just live here together. How would that feel? You know, of course it feels very violating. It feels like, no, absolutely not. And it makes you want to fight for your home and fight for your family. That's the same feeling that we have in America. Now, if I met you, like Aline, I would invite you over to my house, and I would say, please bring, anyone that you would want to bring, because I know you and we've developed a relationship, and you would be welcome in my home. But that's a very different thing than someone forcing their way in and forcing their way of life, rearranging my furniture and throwing my things out, the things that I hold dear. So that's what's really going on here. We are not opposed to immigrants. My family, my father's side of the family are immigrants. My father was born and raised in the Panama Canal Zone, and his parents were Spanish. They were from Spain. And so I'm a first generation American born and raised here. But my father, his family were immigrants. So we are not at all opposed to immigrants, but we just want you to do it the kind and polite way. We want you to do it the right way. And so what's happening right now is, in the last administration, during the Biden administration, in an effort, this is what most of us believe in America, in an effort to skew the voting process in order to bring a lot of people here that would vote Democrat, they literally opened up the border and waved people in. And they just allowed millions and millions and millions of people to come into our country that we don't know anything about. We don't know anything about their history. Some of them were flagged, and some of them they did know were on terrorist lists or things like that. So but even when they knew that, they still deployed them into our country. They might have caught them for a minute and then they let them go. And so we've got so many people here that are very, very dangerous. Countries were emptying out their jails and their prisons and their mental institutions, and just letting these people come into our country. And for those again, it's kind of like at your home, you couldn't fathom that. When you've got your teenage daughter sleeping down the hallway, you wouldn't put a violent criminal across the hallway from her and say, oh, it'll be okay. Yeah. Like, of course you want to protect your family. Right. So this is what happened in the last administration. Now what they want to do, and if they had been reelected, the next thing on the agenda then was to naturalize all of those people, to let them become voting citizens of America. And then they thought that with that in place, because they had given them entry, they'd given them gift cards, they'd given them housing, given them medical benefits, all of these things, that then they would be loyal to the Democrat Party and they would vote Democrat. And so they were starting that process to legalize them to vote. Well, when Trump got elected, which is why they tried everything they could to keep him from getting elected, Trump's not putting a stop to it. And now we've got millions of people in. It's going to take us a while to get them back out, but you've got a lot of people that are saying, well, the ones that are not violent, we should just let them stay. Well, that's not okay either. If you broke our law to come now, I will say this, in one way, it's not completely the ones that are nonviolent, it's not completely their fault, because that last administration was waving them in. So where does the outrage lie? Does it lie at the person who broke the law, or does it lie at the person waving them in? Right. So there is something to be said there. Right. But we still have millions of people in our country that are not here the right way. They did not come the right way. Obviously, the criminals are first priority, and we're seeing the wave of horrible crime now that we are reaping from that horrible policy. So many people that have been killed now, raped, murdered, children, all these, and most of it's not even being reported. Only the worst ones are being reported. Yeah. But it's happening everywhere, even in rural communities. And I will tell you, just from a personal experience, if you break our law to come here, you will break other laws. I had this is before even the Biden administration. This is probably about 15 years ago. I was traveling and I had pulled off to a gas station to go and fuel up my car. And I was with my former husband at the time. And it was about 9:00 at night. And we were walking from the gas pumps into the store to go pay. And it was a pretty big gas station, so there was a pretty long distance between the gas pumps and the front door. And as we're walking in to pay, there was a man in a truck, and he had backed out of his parking spot way down here, and we thought he had stopped to let us walk by. Well, he didn't. He just stepped on the gas, and he came forward, and we didn't have time to get out of the way. He mowed us both down like bowling pins in this parking lot. Mm-hmm. And my husband at the time, he had the wherewithal to jump up on the hood of the truck and try to escape being hit, directly. He just tried to jump up and break the fall. I just froze. And so I was knocked, I had some slip-on shoes on, and I was knocked out of my shoes all across the parking lot. I remember I fell back, I hit my tailbone, and then I fell back and I hit my head. And I watched his truck coming at me, and he stopped just before his tire ran over my head. I could have kissed his tire. And I remember laying there thinking, I'm about to die. And he stopped just in time. He backed up. He got out just to make sure we weren't dead. And then he got back in the truck and he fled. Well, someone in the gas station recognized him because he was an illegal employee of his brother's tire shop. And he didn't want to turn him in right away because he was scared his brother would get in trouble for employing him. Mm-hmm. But his conscience got to him, and later, he did turn him in, and the police found him several hours later at that tire shop. He had stolen a customer's truck, put a different license plate on it. He was having a party in an upstairs apartment where he was staying, and they needed beer. So he was going to the store for the beer run with no driver's license, nothing, and almost killed us. We lost 2 years of our lives recovering from that. And that's what I'm talking about. I can speak from personal experience. If you don't know our laws, you don't know how to drive on our streets, you can't even read the road signs. Right. You're stealing trucks, you're stealing other people's vehicles to go, supply the party. If you don't care about our laws to come here, you are not going to care about them once you're here. Correct. And this is why Americans are furious about it. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be used. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want our children hurt or killed. Worse, we don't want to be stolen from. This is our tax money. This is our hard-earned tax money that, again, we've built this house. We've paid the money to have it. We've got our blood, sweat, and tears behind it. Right. And when someone comes in and they just want to pillage it, of course we're angry about that. Yes, definitely. And Trump knows that because of all of the influx of immigrants that we now have here, millions, and the numbers are hard to gauge because we don't know. There's so many gotaways, we don't know how many are here. So until we can get that back balanced out again, we can't accept more immigrants. We are overrun with them. Which makes sense, right? Yeah. Makes sense. It's not that we don't want people to come here. It's not that we don't need their skill sets and their areas of expertise and all of that. But we've got a crisis on our hands right now. It's like in anything, until you can get the crisis under control, you don't have the ability to accept more people into the country. And one of the ways that I like to explain it is it's kind of like what the terrible floods and all that we saw in Texas or in North Carolina. When rain comes down at a rate that you can absorb it into the ground, and all, we need rain, right, to survive. Right. It can, it's good for so many things. But when it comes down too fast, it floods places, then houses float away, systems break down, systems are overwhelmed. We have death and destruction and all of that. This is what happened at our border. They came in too fast and we couldn't handle the flood. Correct. And now we are just literally dealing with that aftermath. And so we have to get that under control before we can accept more. Yeah, it totally makes sense. And let's think for a moment here. I'm going to give you one example. And I do have also experienced so many issues that I'm facing, not only with illegal, because the country, America, has their own issues already, their own crime they have to watch and deal with that, right? And then why open more people, open the border or accepting people who are not coming the right way
there is no enough police to control that, right? And one example I want to give it right now, just pretend that you were at home with your husband and you have 2 kids, right? And then you have your budget every month that you can manage your whole family. Then you receive a phone call from your sister and she call you and say, oh, I'm sorry, my husband got laid off or fired, and then we need some support. Automatically, as a good sister, you're gonna answer, sure, how can I help you, right? You wanna stay with us for a couple months or whatever, we can help you, right? Okay, you let them in to your home. So, and then 1 month, 2 months pass, 3 months, and then you don't see your sister and your brother-in-law looking for another job. What's gonna happen with your family? And what's gonna happen with your budget? It's gonna create like a collapse in your budget, right? And then you're gonna have turn like a discussion or disagreement and say, hey, I cannot support you anymore. That's the same conception when the illegal or undocumented or whatever you wanna name it, coming to US not the right way. Who's gonna pay for them? Me and her. Everybody that pay your taxes and came the right way. When you go to the consulate in Brazil, America consulate, or any other countries to do your fingerprint, that means everything's sending to here, to America, to know who you are. They need to know who you are, what you have done in your past. Why? They want to protect their own home. When do you support someone is undocumented or come illegally or whatever they come, or to the boat or any other sources, you're just not respecting and supporting the criminal way to come to their country. That's the conception that we need to understand why so many visas has been rejected, right? There is no excuses for that. It's pretty simple. If you understand like you are, if you were in the tech industry like me, if you're a CEO, I'm 100% sure you're not gonna hire someone that breaks law, right? If you're dealing with data, information, so sensitive information, you don't wanna hire someone that has that mentality. There is no way to trust in someone that breaks law. And that's why we're having this dialogue here, and to make you understand how important it is just to show respect the country that you landing, you are trying to stay. It's a simple respect the law, right? Like if you're saying, it doesn't mean what the media has published. Oh, Americans hate us, America don't want people, Americans are racist, or any kind of name that you heard through the social media. That's not the truth. Because if you go back to your own country, you want the best for your own country, if you love your country, right? Every time when you hear like American come first, that is the conception from them. We need to understand and realize and accept that. There is no excuses to turn and be so disobedient, so negative, and accusing them for something is part of the history. And that's why, as an immigrant view, I facing the struggling on the street, the struggling when someone got murdered or assassinated, or for undocumented someone that don't have no rights to be here. Families are crying, families are losing their children, their teenagers, for people they should not be here, right? So if you don't want this happen to you, why are you doing this to them? That's my question. We need to develop a mindset that thinker before we speak something wrong, and do your own homework, saying why the media is publishing this. Is that true? Do I have someone that I can go and ask, like I'm doing right now? A good source that know the law, how it works, and explain to us. it's as simple as it is. It's just respect their own law and everything what they have done. And all these people they have done in the back days to get where you are right now. It's very frustrating. I do understand that. Very frustrated. For us in Brazil, we are dealing with sanctions right now, right? Mm-hmm. Which is worry us, good people, like smart people, want to come here, participate of the PhD degree or the sciences. Mm-hmm. We want to be here. They want to be here. They put their application and they have been reject their visas. Mm-hmm. It is frustrated, but like she's saying, they have to do a housekeeping right now.
Yeah.
Until the economy goes back to the way it should be, the numbers that they can control more, right? Another example that I faced here, I was here also, 2019, August 2019. That's when the media published that information. A elder couple in Washington State, they committed suicide because they could not afford a health insurance anymore. When I read that back that day in 2019, it just broke my heart because they're people here. They're paying their taxes, they're elders, they pay taxes their whole life, but they could afford it anymore. And then on the other hand, you see someone in document going to the medical building and have their surgery done, have their baby delivered in America, and not paying anything. And then maybe you think about it, is that fair to those elders? This is one example of million examples we could present it to you right now.
Could I say something on the medical side? Something that is really tugging at people's heartstrings right now is this medical issue, that medicine should be a human right. And of course, anytime we see a human being that is suffering, you want to address that. Of course, you want to help them. We as Americans, I just want to say to you, we are not heartless. We do want to help anyone who is suffering, especially children. We don't ever want to see that. But sometimes the hard decisions have to be made in order for everyone in America, the American citizen, to also be taken care of. Like what you're saying about that elderly couple, it is heartbreaking. Again, when our systems are overwhelmed and we don't have the ability to take care of everyone, someone has to pay that bill.
Right.
And it's not just free. Everything is not just free. Freedom came with a very, very big cost. Like you said, it was shed by soldiers on the battlefield. It's a very, very high cost for freedom. And we as Americans, we share with our tax money. We share we do provide care for people who can't afford it. We have hospitals set up for people in every state where if they can't afford it, there are free hospitals that you can go to and get care.
Right.
But we just have to understand that if we have the best medical care in the world, and we do here in America, I've talked with people in socialized and communist countries, the healthcare here compared to what they receive in other countries is night and day difference. In order for us to have that, we have to have incentives for doctors to want to learn and to want to grow and to want to master their field, all of that. Competition, free markets, all of that is very, very important. But I think a lot of people, even in America, that are sympathetic to these issues, they don't understand. They just think that everyone, by making healthcare free, that everyone would get the standard of care that they're getting. And that's not what happens. When you socialize medicine, then all of the quality of care comes down. You're in quality control. If you have to understand that when you socialize everything, it brings everything down to a mediocre level. When you take away free markets and competition, then there's no incentive for the government to have sanitary conditions, for them to have innovative treatments, for them to have the best medicines available, for them to have affordable medicine, for them to have the best technology to be able to take x-rays and MRIs and all these things. So all of that quality comes down when you spread it out among so many people. It's not that everyone would get the same standard. It's that the standards would come down for everyone. And this is what people don't understand. When you socialize anything like that, there's a few, the elite, the ruling class will get the best care. Everyone else will be out of luck. And I heard a woman from a communist country. She grew up in communist Romania, Marxist Romania, when she was young. And I asked her we were talking about it one day, and I asked her, I said, help me understand what the healthcare looked like in your country. And what she said, I'll never forget it. Two things she said. She said, first of all, you hope and pray you don't get sick. She said, because when you go into the hospital, it is so disgusting. Mold on the walls, nothing's clean. You don't want anything to touch you. She goes, they really just kind of hope that you come in and catch something and die so they don't have to take care of you. It's so awful. And then she said, the other thing that happens is once you reach a certain age, you're 65, 70 years old, then you're no longer seen as a contributor to society. You can't work anymore and contribute. So they see you as disposable. So she said, if you're 65 years old and you start getting chest pains in your living room and you call 911, the ambulance is not coming. They will just let you die. She said, that's what these people are ushering in. They have no idea what they're ushering in. And this is why people like us who do know the history, who do go and find these things out, who do go down these rabbit trails and try to understand, this is why we're fighting so hard. It's not because we're heartless. Right. It's because we do care. We want people to have great care. And we lead the world in that care.
Right.
But if we socialize it, that will all go away. That will all change.
Yeah.
And then people on the other side will go, oh, well, we didn't know it was going to be like this. Oh, well, we had no idea. Well, it's too late.
Right.
If America shuts down, where are we going to go? Like, America is the beacon.
Yeah.
If we combust from within, if we implode, if we allow all these policies to break down everything that our founding fathers stood so strongly for, there is no plan B.
Yeah.
So this is why we're fighting so hard to protect it, because we know that.
Yeah.
We don't have time for an I told you so on the other side.
How that makes you feel when you hear she's saying that there is no plan B? Because for us as an immigrant that trying so hard to come to America, right? We had a plan B. Brazil is facing a communism right now. We're not a good scenario. It's hard to say that to me. Because I have a roots, I have a family.
Yeah.
I care about it,
of course,
right?
Yes.
And facing all this change, bad things, America had to put some sanction for them to let people be free, right? It's not a good feeling. But we do had a plan B to go someplace else. But Americans, they don't. And that's why they're fighting for. They don't want to get this point. And they have all the rightness to fight for what they believe and protect their history. They're not asking more than like something is insane. It just protect and respect what they was raised for, right? And not let people come in and want to change everything, change the law, change the language, right? Some places I have been experienced that, no, we don't speak English here. How that possible?
Yeah.
And then I have to turn and say, how come? It's the first language in a country. This is how it was built up from the history. And now you're saying I cannot speak English here? It's a big deal. Not to me, it just shows no respect at all, right? Because you choose to be here. Nobody's forcing you to be here, right? You have a freedom, will to make your own decisions, right? Just think about that. And I want you take away those thoughts, negative thoughts about the visa and stuff, and try to understand where they are coming from. That's what when you hear President Trump or the Vice President talking, it's not about being racist or xenophobic or whatever you name it, right? It's not about that. It's about what's happening and we're facing every day because we live here. I see the struggling. It is a heartbreak in so many cases, but I'm choosing to understand instead accusing them for something. Because I would love to have a president that says, Brazilian come first.
Yeah.
Right? That is our dream.
Yeah.
Brazilian come first, because if he were doing their job, we are not having the plan B, because we want to escape from all the damage right they are doing in our country.
Yeah.
Right? We're here, we talk about safety, right? Health insurance, so many scenarios we can discuss here. In Brazil, we deal a lot of corruption.
Yeah.
We don't trust in our money. Mm-hmm. We don't trust them, right? Mm-hmm. We don't feel safe. Right. You cannot, Brazilians, we cannot walking on the street with iPhone. We don't.
Yeah.
Because somebody kill you because of iPhone.
Yeah.
Not only in the big cities, in São Paulo, for example, but everywhere by now, because the crime increased. And that's why the smart and rich people are escaping, going to other countries. Mm-hmm. They are getting tired of this. Mm-hmm. So we do have a plan B. Americans, they don't. That's my understanding, right? Now, change a little bit about the subject. Back in 2015, it was during the Obama administration, right? I'll talk about visa again. It was an agreement between USA and Indian to give some visas, special visas to India for technology people, mm-hmm. right? Back that day, it was a very increased numbers for those people, especially from the California, the whole high-tech industry mm-hmm. for them, right? It was a lot of people coming in. Mm-hmm. Now, Trump just said a statement 2 days ago, he's shutting down that mm-hmm. and say, if you have a permission here to stay 2 years, you have to go home because there is no sponsorship for you. Mm-hmm. Because you gotta have a sponsorship back home to stay in America, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. That's why they're saying you have to go back. So once again, some media publishing, now no visa for India, no visa for tech people. So they don't want us there. Mm-hmm. Is that the truth?
Yeah, no, of course not. And, one of the things that I know Trump is really passionate about is bringing the American workforce up to a standard that a lot of the other countries have had. Again, our education system, one of the things he's done is he's dismantling the Department of Education, because as I told you, that's been a very intentional thing to kind of dumb down our students and dumb down our workforce. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these higher technology jobs and things like that, and we do have, of course, some very brilliant minds in America, but because we've pushed this narrative of trying to be dependent on the government, manipulating emotions, and then dumbing down our schools, our testing scores, and all of that. We don't have a lot of people in our country now that have been really invested in when it comes to education. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of I'll just say it, we've got a lot of lazy kids out there that are just playing video games in their parents' basements and mooching off their parents until they're in their 30s, So a lot of this is, we need to change the culture. We need to change the want to in our young people. And again, we see a lot of that already happening. But yes, we want people to come when they have specialized skills and they have expertise in certain areas. But with so much investment that's going on now in bringing technology plants and AI plants and all of that stuff here to America now, with that investment, we're hoping now that Americans can fill a lot of those jobs. But obviously, when we have people from other countries, yes, there's a process. You can't just come and stay for your 2 years and then overstay your visa. Again, that's breaking the law. You're not doing what you agreed to do. You have to do everything the right way. Do we want your skills? Of course we do. But it has to be, and with all of these plants going up and all, we're probably going to need a lot of those skilled workers and highly advanced minds to come. But again, also there's a vetting process too, because other countries have agendas. We're looking at China. We're looking at countries that literally are trying to infiltrate and overtake us in areas of technology. So we have to think about things very differently now than we used to. Even back in Obama's administration, there are different factors now to be considered. And so I think Trump is just taking a step back and saying, let's look at this again. Let's look at this in a smart way. Let's make sure that the people that we're bringing are coming the right way. Let's make sure that they're contributing to America and that they're not, again, using America or here to do harm to America. And everybody just has to play by the rules. Now, the other thing I will say is with this America First agenda, I think a lot of people, and for those who are watching globally, I just want to clarify this real quick. When you're on an airplane, a lot of us travel, right? You're on an airplane and the flight attendant says, when your oxygen mask comes down, make sure you put it on yourself before you put it on the person next to you, right? Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody, right? So that's the spirit in which Trump says America first. We are, like I said earlier, a beacon to the rest of the world. If so many countries are reliant on America being successful. You know, other economies, we are the dominant when it comes to, the American dollar is the currency of the world. You know, we look at countries that would, without our protection, would be overtaken. There's so many tentacles across the world that America touches. So we have to be strong. If we are strong, then you are strong. If we are strong and we're doing well, you're doing well. That's the idea behind America First. It's not to shut everyone else out. It's not isolationism. It's very much a case of we're just putting on our oxygen mask so that we can not pass out, so we can help other countries. And I do believe, Trump is not a perfect man, and I know a lot of people have issue with things he says and all of that. But if you look at the policies, if you just separate the personality from the policies are brilliant, and they're already in not even a year into his first term, they're already resuscitating America so much. And over the next 3.5 years, that's going to increase more. And we're going to see that reverberate throughout the world. And people on the other side of his term are going to say, thank God. But if we had continued with the last administration, America would have passed out, so to speak. And the rest of the world would have felt that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot to think about it, that you, especially outside the country, you don't have no idea what's going on over here.
Yeah.
You don't have the numbers, you don't have the data to understand what it's projecting. There is 1,000 people discussing how America is going to end it up and presenting numbers to, I'm sure for Trump, the scenario, the real scenario that we're facing right now, right? That's caused a lot of, I will not say frustration, but they need to review a lot of things. They need to do a housekeeping right now before moving forward.
Yeah.
And one of the things that doing the housekeeping is just rejecting visa right now. How long is going to be?
And I don't think it's going to be that long. You know, once we get a lot of these plans in place and we actually start seeing the building of these manufacturing plants, and right now it's all in the planning stages or in the development stages, but when we actually start seeing the doors open, I think at that point, a lot of his policies will have caught up too. The tariffs and all of these things will have caught up to a point where we are healthy again. We can get a lot of these people out of our country that don't belong here. I think over his term, over his entire term, the next 3.5 years, I think we're going to see massive changes. And that's going to open up opportunities for the rest of the world again to start coming back in again. But you're right. It's a housekeeping operation right now. It's a crisis that we're trying to manage right now. Just like in the flooding that I was talking about earlier, like if we just look at the Texas floods, heartbreaking, just gut-wrenching to see how that community was devastated. Obviously, before people can move back in, you've got to clean it up, right? You've got to go in and you've got to clean out all the debris, and you've got to solidify the infrastructure again, and then you can start building on it again. It's the same idea. This is what we're facing in America right now. Our country's just been devastated and continues to be devastated. We look at that poor girl on the subway, right? We look at, just not even the illegal immigrant crime, but just the lawlessness in America from the Democrat policies that have allowed cashless bail and criminals just revolving doors, criminals back out on the streets. I mean, we have so much to clean up right now.
Yeah.
It is just such a mess. What the last administration did, in my opinion, was pure treason. Mm-hmm. And I will just say that on record. The number one job for government is to keep America safe. And for them to open up our floodgates and open up our jails and prisons and just let all of these people who want to do harm, to let them roam the streets.
Right.
It is the epitome of treason. Mm-hmm. You know, so yes, Trump came in and he's trying to clean it up. And yes, because it was so outrageous what they did, it's taking outrageous means to put it back together by sending in the National Guard, things like this. It's not because he's a dictator. It's not because he's a fascist. Quite the opposite. Mm-hmm. You know, when we send in military police, it's not to hurt people. It's to protect infrastructure so the cops can do their job. You know, again, when people just don't understand, it's easy to throw these terms around when they don't understand what they mean.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. That's why we're having this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want you, are outside of U.S., understand that, how important to go back to the history. You're going to understand why your visa has been denied. But like you should say, it's not going to take that long to go back to the right track. But they do just respect their own time, their housekeeping time right now. But of course, they want you, if you're going to come to the right way and do the right way when you were here, don't change, right? Don't say one thing at the consulate in USA, in Brazil, or any country, or Indian, and then when you land here, you change, mm-hmm. right? You turn everything to your favor. You're gonna get caught for sure, especially right now, right? Don't play the game. Don't come with this mentality because it's not gonna work for you. That's what they're trying to say, and I'm 100% support on that. Don't play the game, right? If you're not gonna be punished or anything like that come after to you, just do the right thing. Choose the right thing. You're gonna be okay. Anywhere you go, you have to respect their own laws and rules, and you'll be fine. Like I am one of perfect example that choose to do the right thing and trying to do every day the right path, hang out with the right people, find the correct resources to answer my questions, instead to be like create a rebellion and being so negative and accusing them and go support other stuff that's not true. It's not gonna work either, right? We need to get along. We need to respect, understand what is behind. That's the one thing that I want to say, make clear here for you that watch this podcast.
And Aline, I want to say, as an American, thank you for doing it the right way. Thank you for coming and respecting our laws and choosing to follow the rules and choosing to be a contributor to our society. On behalf of Americans, I thank you for that. And I'm personally very, very glad you're here. And I wish everyone could come in the same spirit that you have.
Yeah, you're welcome. I do understand that. I really do, and do appreciate it. This country has offered so much. So much. If you want to study, you have some resource for free. If you want to learn English, you have libraries. You have teachers to teach you English. Mm-hmm. Who does that?
Yeah.
Which country does that? Tell me. Find my social. Tell me. I want to know. It's free. You have an American teacher teach you English. There is no excuses for you not learn the language if you cannot afford it. Right? If the skills it is not afforded, right? You have so much things to be successful in this country. And the only thing they are asking me and you do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
That's all we ask.
That's the ask.
And don't hurt us. Don't hurt us,
right? Yeah. So it's just a blessing. It's amazing opportunity to be when you get along and you respect them. And that's when I say you be successful. That's what I'm talking about. We don't want to have any confrontation. And as Brazilians facing all this change happening back in our country and deal with the communist mentality, it's have been hurt us so bad in so many ways. So many ways. is very, very upsetting and make us cry too, because nobody wants your own country be destroyed, right? And then you have to get out. Like, we do have the plan B to be here, right? But Americans, they don't.
No, we don't.
Once, if you don't stand up, you do try educating people, go back to the history, it's gonna be very hard to fix it, like it's happening right now. Housekeeping, change people perspective, but we need to open our heart and our mind also to accept that the fact and not be so closed mindset, and give opportunity to listen and let's have a conversation. We are living in freedom. We can have a conversation. We're not gonna kill each other, right? Especially Christians, we don't kill. We wanna have a conversation, discuss the point. So that's what it's about. That's America is about, right? That's the founders started. And I'm sure their family, their relative related to them, they wanna you respect what they did for weeks and months to get where we are right now, right? They will be very upset too.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work.
One of the things I say often is our founding fathers are rolling in their graves right now, just meaning that they would be so sick over what has been allowed to happen.
I'm sure.
You know? And Ronald Reagan said that freedom is one generation away from extinction. We don't pass it down in our bloodline. It has to be taught. It has to be shared with the next generation. And so this is what we, as Christians, as Americans, are required to do, is to educate and teach. We don't have the luxury of being ignorant about our history. We have to take the initiative to learn. And like you said, there's no excuse. The resources are everywhere. We just need to get off our lazy bums sometime and care about it enough. And I think a lot of Americans do care about it, which is why we saw the tremendous outpouring of support for Donald Trump in this last election. We saw firsthand all of the attempts to take him down that were so unlawful, that were so dangerous, even assassination attempts, all of that. Americans said enough. So there's a fire in the belly now of Americans of saying, okay, we've been ignorant long enough, we've been lazy long enough, we have to stand up and protect our country or it's going to go away.
Good.
Yeah,
wonderful. Do you have any other considerations to talk about that? And any point that, just for free right now, that's your time to talk to them and trying to make them understand how important it is, respect the law, and then your visa is not going to get denied.
The only last parting words I might have is just that we love our country and we want to protect our country, and that is our heart, is just to protect and preserve what so many of not only our founding fathers, but our brothers and our uncles and our grandfathers and all of those died to protect. The cost of freedom is very heavy. I've lost many family members to the scars of war. And we don't want war. We want peace. Peace through strength is the American way. And so if you want to come here, please come with a heart to contribute, a heart to be a part and assimilate to the American culture, not to come and force your culture on us, but to come and be a part of what we've built. We would welcome you. But if you come with ill intent, you're going to have a fight, because we're not going to stand for it anymore. But if you want to come and you want to be a part of this incredible American experiment, we welcome you and we would love to have you. And I hope that this message today has penetrated your heart, that you've seen the heart of at least one American. I know there are many who share my sentiment. And I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to address the world today and to let them know that we're not heartless. We're really not. We do have a heart for every human being. As a Christian, you were made in the image of God. So please come, but do it the right way. And please do it with a kind and polite heart, and a giving heart. Don't come just to take. No one would want that.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us and watching. Give your time. I do appreciate it. And stay tuned on my social media, on YouTube and Instagram, Aline Global Technology. Next episode, we're going to talk about data privacy, which is very, very important topic right now. What can I do to protect my own privacy? against all these changes happening in our society. Thank you and have a good day.